on Mr. Gathwright's age, physical abilities, things like that, do you think that the prison would benefit from him in a work capacity if he were sentenced to life without parole?
I say yes, with my experience, not only just in classification, but as former warden and even as a jail administrator. He's someone that's young, he's healthy. In reality, we need that labor, we need that sweat equity, and we will put him out there to work because we do have an aging prison population, jail administration. We have that, so we put these young individuals to work and get some sweat equity out of them since they are young and actually can do the work.
And I know we talk about
Just know when you see that murder, that they committed, it was it's brutal. So if somebody's capable of committing a murder like that and carry it out and plan it out and all of that, I just want to know if gang is a part of their everyday thought process still. should he be? Should they have compassion for him? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go through this clip. I'm live already.
All right.
Okay, very good. Everyone have a seat. All right, Ms. Finkelstein, your next witness is?
Gaffrey.
All right, Mr. Gaffney, please stand up, raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this conference will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Smart founders know something most
Shout out
people
YouTube,
miss.
they
Get
gonna
your
get their
domain
money.
name even if you're not ready to launch your business. With Wix, you can grab yours now and then get to work. Here's why it matters. Back in 2019,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, have a seat and you may continue.
Your Honor. Please state your name for the record, sir, and spell your name for a court reporter.
My name's Sean Gathright, SeanGathright.
What's your date of birth?
I was born on October 20th, 2005.
Mr. Gaffrey, you've heard people speak here today on your behalf and yesterday, and I know that you wanted to address the court and the jury. So I would like to ask you what you want the jury to know.
Yeah. I just want to address the court today, and, you know, I'm not here to dispute anything. I'm just here to be a man and take responsibility and express my feelings about what is, you know, this whole situation. You know, that's what I plan on doing.
Okay. And how do you feel? What?
I feel very remorseful, you know. This is a terrible situation. It's been a traumatic experience. You know.
Let me ask you this. So, how old were you when you were arrested?
I was 18 years old.
We heard that you had started some college, obviously probably didn't get very far, right?
Right.
What have you done since you've been in jail? Is there programs? Are there things that you can do there?
So, you know, I've gotten into programs. I've also, you know, I grew up, you know, in church and, you know, in a Christian household. So I refocused my, you know, life to Christ, and, you know, I've taken a lot of religious programs. I've read the Bible from cover to cover. I've tried to, you know, share some word, and, you know, we have prayer circles in the jail and stuff like that. I've led a couple, you know, prayer circles, and I've tried to, you know, kids around my age or, you know, younger, you know, since I'm 20 years old now, that when you turn 18, you know, you go to the adult pods and stuff like that. So if I see somebody who I see, you know, has a lot of potential and has a chance to keep them from, you know, basically being able to be corrected at this opportunity and not come back, you know, I try to take them under my wing. As you see, I have a lot of resources and a lot of family that love me, and they've even, you know, asked me like, hey, is there anybody in there who doesn't have somebody like that, who, you know, could we send them some money, like, you know, anything like that. So I've tried to, you know, be a vessel for God to pour over my blessings into those around me.
We heard from Mr. Benoska, who said that, in prison, that there is opportunities at times to be a mentor, or you do orientations and peer-to-peer, things like that. Is that something that you'd be interested in doing?
Of course, I definitely want to, try my absolute best to course correct anybody from falling down a path that they don't have to take, especially the youth. I feel like that's my calling that God has put on my heart to, be a mentor to the youth and be a positive influence
So ain't no
in
more
this world.
gang.
With Artlist Studio, you can create entire scenes shot by shot, keeping your characters and locations consistent. Cast a character.
What about those relationships? Like you said, you have a lot of people. Are you able to maintain those relationships now?
Yes, so, everybody who I, maintain a relationship with wasn't able to all be here today or, even testify. But, I talk to them daily, weekly, bi-weekly. I cherish my supporters very deeply. And I want to maintain a relationship with them for the rest of my life.
And I know, we're not going to talk about the case itself, right? But you said that you were taking accountability, you felt remorseful. Tell us what you mean by that and what statement you want to make.
To the victim's family, I want to send my deepest condolences and I understand that it's hard losing a child, a best friend, a brother, a cousin.
Boy, I don't know if I could have sit in that courtroom and just look at him tell me that, boy, because in the videos y'all was dancing with them sticks, young boy, like y'all hated that young man, bro. So, Jesus, boy, I'm glad you being the man and saying what you saying, bro. But I could imagine how that woman is feeling about her child as you tell her that you did it, pretty much. You just had a whole trial fighting, saying that you didn't. And now that you've proven guilty, now you're telling her you did it and you sorry after dragging it out pretty much for her.
And for that, I just cannot say sorry enough. I feel terrible about the situation, but I'm a firm believer that God can use anything for good that the devil wanted for bad.
Oh, shit.
And so I am grateful for the people I've met, for the lessons that I've learned, for just this experience in general, because it's one that I'll never forget, and it's going to shape the rest of my life.
Sounds like there's that saying, it's kind of cheesy, but you make lemons out of lemonade or whatever. Make
Lemonade out of lemons.
Somehow. I obviously don't make lemonade, but it sounds to me like you are going to try and
throwing
make
you
the
away,
best
boy.
of a bad situation. Does that sound about right?
Of course.
And are you going to continue to do that?
Of course. I'm going to try to, continue a humble life, a righteous life, try to do the right things at all times, and,
Will you apprise yourself? We've heard about some, courses and programs and things that you can get involved with to stay busy in prison. Is that something that you plan to do?
Yeah, so hearing Raul's testimony was, the first glimpse that I have of, what prison it could be like. I want to stay as busy as possible, stay away from bad apples. I want to, keep a job, get into programs, try to get into any vocational things I can do, try to, keep my record clean to, go to the best incentivized things and have visits with my family. And, I just want to stay out the way, just want to make everything, peaceful as can be.
Even knowing that you're not getting out of prison, you want to make the best of your stay there?
Of course. I mean, who wouldn't? If you're going to be somewhere for the rest of your life, why would you make your life a living hell?
And you're young, right? You're 20?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I have a moment?
Yes.
He
I'll pass the
gotta
witness.
make.
Okay. Stay.
He gotta make.
You would agree with me that Charles Jones was young too, wasn't he?
Relatively young, yes, sir.
26, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what the evidence showed us, correct? You were sitting here watching that, correct? The evidence that came in over the last several weeks?
I was right there.
Yeah. And you want to take accountability now, correct? You want to take accountability now that this jury has found you guilty, correct?
Yes, sir.
Weeks after we went through a trial. Is that your testimony?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain the
Jumping
objection.
on this bumper right now.
You
Oh,
indicated
that's-
this was a traumatic experience. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That's what you just testified to, correct?
That's what I said.
You ready to how long look like? Every time I see him just sit there, it kills me just because it just.
We just have one moment, Your Honor. We'll try to get the all over.
Yes.
He wasn't about none of that. You grew up in the church. Mom of them got everything.
Websites
laid
your
out
competitors
for you.
don't want you to know. Part 2.
I done seen niggas go the wrong way, boy, but it just became too, like, it's too costly and too, it just don't pay to go the wrong way these days because there's so many easy ways for them to catch you.
5C, you remember Gino Norris?
Yes, sir.
You remember him? He was also really young when this happened, wasn't he?
I didn't know how old he was.
Early 20s, 22. Would that surprise you?
No, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Gino Norris, who's not a gang member, who's Charles Jones' friend from the time they're children.
What's the legal basis?
The facts of the case.
Okay.
Yeah,
Come on
he
up,
say he
counsel.
can't let the face up to it, so all this he got to wear it. Like, he got to make sure that they trying to stick it to him, boy. We finna send you to prison with all this on your mind, boy. It just look like the lawyer, I don't know if they didn't expect this guy to come in there and put pressure on him. I mean, the trial over with, so I'm thinking that this is just, I thought it was just like a platform for him to come in and kind of say his piece. But it looked like this some kind of sentencing. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But it's surprising that he not ready for that. That's what it looked like. It don't look like he ready for it. It don't look like he ready for this cat coming at him like that. And the lawyer stopping it because it don't look like they told him that he could come at him like that. Sometimes I think that a good lawyer has these people ready.
26C, Xavier Edwards. 25C, Gino Norris.
The judge said, boy, hell.
And you
yeah,
saw the
boy.
autopsy photos of Charles Jones. My question to you is, after you and your friends inflicted that carnage on June 23rd, and as you were running States 2059C, this is actually you running to shoot them, but when you were running back past that,
So when they show you that right there, when they show him that, what is going through your head after you just said everything else you just said to these people about church and going and being a good guy? Like, oh my God, boy, you got to, yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard looking at this and thinking that you just flipped to a good guy since you got to jail.
That Tesla. Were you feeling a lot of trauma at that point?
Oh, let's see.
It was so long ago, I try to not remember anything from that night.
Were you remorseful as you
Try
were
not to
running back
remember.
with that AR-15 in your hands?
Oh,
Like I said, I try to remember nothing from that night.
Was it traumatic to you as you went back to the car with that AR-15? Was it still smoking? Was it still
That
warm in
stick.
your hands from firing it?
look,
Sustain the objection.
look, that boy
Were
trying
you
to
still
get right
feeling
right now.
remorse as you were getting back into the Impala?
Like I said, I just try to focus on today and moving forward.
So the next day, that Impala, that was your car. You drove that around, right? It was your mom's, but you drove that car, correct?
Yes, sir, it's my mother's car.
Right. And that was the car
Oh,
you
you was-
drove from Jacksonville to Tampa in, correct?
I'm going to object on this bill.
I'm working to a point, Your Honor.
Okay, why don't we just get there?
All right. So this car, this Impala
That was
that
your
you
mama
drove
car,
from
boy.
Jacksonville to Tampa in with
Damn.
Mr. Chance and Miss Andrews, the one that you drove in tandem with the Silver Cruise, the same car that you utilized to drive the assault team, the shooting team, which you were a part
Yeah,
of
y'all
that night.
boys.
That same car that you drove around Tampa in the early morning hours for several hours, tracking, stalking, and hunting Charles Jones and his
Y'all went to
entourage.
Waffle House, all kind of shit. Hardy.
That same Impala, you drove that to Polk County the next day, and you dropped it at your grandmother's house, right? The same grandmother who came in here last night and testified for you, correct?
Overruled. Go ahead, you
shit,
can answer that question.
Isn't that correct?
What is the question?
You dropped the Impala, the one that had all of these shooters in it, the one that was utilized in this murder, that was such a vital cog in this plan. You dropped it
So
at
you
your
had them
grandmother's
steppers
house
in there,
in
bro.
Auburndale, didn't you?
I'm here to testify about today.
Are you going to answer that question, or are you going to avoid it? Because that's not what I asked what you were doing here today. I think we all understand what you're here to do today, what you're testifying about.
We've all
I'm
seen-
asking you specifically about your remorse. Were you remorseful?
I'm here just so I
when you
won't
dropped
get
that
fined.
car
That's
off
what
and
you
left
should
it
be
at
saying
your
right now,
grandmother's
Jay.
house in Auburndale?
I'm not here just so I won't
I
get
did go to
fined.
my grandmother's house.
Were you feeling remorse when you hugged her and got into the 4Runner and left her with the Impala after you wiped it down?
Sir, I'm just telling you that today I would like to express my remorse to the
I
family and to the
understand.
court.
I understand what you're trying to do today. I'm asking you, since you're trying to convince this jury that you're remorseful, were you feeling remorse that next day or later that day?
When you
I
were
don't
hugging your
remember
grandma
these
and taking the
days in
photo.
detail, how I was feeling, what I was
The question
thinking.
again, like
What
you
about
asked the
later
first
that
time.
night when you went to Orlando? Were you feeling remorse when you were out
know y'all ain't
partying
go
at
to
Club
Disney
Parlay,
World, boy.
celebrating what you had done that day?
That was my sister's birthday party.
What did you feel any remorse while you were drinking Don Julio tequila and putting that in your video and throwing gang signs?
Is the gang still? That's what I'm saying. Is the gang still a part of everyday life for little bruh still? Cause
Fentanyl hides in fake pills.
come on, man. Like, the gang got to be some kind of like
I'm here
Did you
to
feel remorse
testify about today, sir.
help at this point, man. Come on,
We've all
gang.
seen the evidence. We've all reviewed
Mr.
everything.
Mr.
that's been-
Chance, it's not time for you now to make speeches. You've politely answered your
Chance.
counsel's questions. Can you not answer the state's questions? Is there
Gathright.
something about my question you don't understand?
I was getting to.
I'm
I
sorry,
was getting
I'm sorry,
to.
Mr. Gathright, I called you Mr. Chance. Excuse me.
I was getting to my answer. Like I said, I've seen all the evidence.
Well, we've all seen all the evidence,
Oh,
Yes,
right?
sir. That's true.
And after all that evidence came in and this jury based their true verdict on that, convicting you. Now you're taking accountability? Is that correct?
Sustain the objection. I think the question on the table was remorse about an Orlando. Okay?
It is, Your Honor.
You just need to answer that question. Okay?
So I'm going to ask you very specifically, okay? So try to focus with a laser beam here, Mr. Gathright.
Not with a laser beam.
Were you feeling remorse when you were in Club Parlay in Orlando drinking Don Julio? Were you feeling remorse for what you did earlier that day?
I don't remember how I was feeling or what I was thinking.
Were you feeling remorse when you got pulled over in the Forerunner a couple of days later by the police?
I don't remember. I was nervous. I mean, I had never been involved in any
Were you
police
feeling
matters.
remorse when you were unloading the Impala and putting all of that evidence into the Forerunner? Did you feel remorse?
Sorry, I told you I don't
Mama
remember how I
and
was feeling or what I
grandma
was
brought
thinking
the
in
trial,
those days.
boy.
Mr. Gathright, you have led, you would agree with me, an extremely privileged life, haven't you?
Oh my God.
Yes, sir.
You would agree with that, correct?
I would.
You've had a loving mother, correct?
Yes, sir.
A loving sister, correct?
Yes, sir.
You've had 2 wonderful grandmothers, correct?
Yes, sir.
You would agree with me, right?
I couldn't deny that.
One of which probably, I'm assuming, sacrificed and paid for you to go to that private school, that preparatory school, correct?
This shit.
It wasn't paid. It was a magnet program, so I had to apply, and it was a lottery system.
It was a lottery system. Okay, so it was a magnet.
Yes, sir.
All right. She supported you going there, did she not?
Everybody did.
Gave you open use of her house, welcomed you, treated you, and parented you, basically, didn't she?
Yes, sir.
Took care of you when your parents were deployed, correct?
Yes, sir. At the time,
the
I was living with
parents
my
in the
grandmother.
military.
Both of my parents had been either retired or out of the military. I was just living there more so. I needed a change of scenery, and my relationship with my father wasn't sustainable.
Okay. This is when you were in Oxford with your grandmother.
Yes, sir.
The nice lady we saw earlier came in here.
Yes, sir.
The one that has supported you and spoke so lovingly about you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so you went to this preparatory school, and whether you got in there through a lottery or not, you would agree with me, not everybody gets to go to a school like that, correct?
The lottery school, the magnet school I went to was in middle school when I was living in Jacksonville. The school I went to in Oxford, it was just a public high school.
A public high school.
Yes, sir.
Okay, my mistake. So you went to that preparatory school in Jacksonville.
Yes, sir.
But again, that school was not something that every kid gets to go to, right?
No, sir.
Not every kid gets to have a counselor and a role model like Mr. Edwards, correct?
No, sir. I was very blessed.
And not many children get to fly in planes with their stepfather, correct?
No, sir.
And fly around in Asia and get to see islands off the coast of Okinawa, correct?
No, sir. I was
And go on
very
camp-
blessed.
You are very blessed, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
And not every kid gets to go to Scotland, right?
No, sir.
Or Ireland,
No, sir.
or Paris,
No, sir.
or London,
No, sir.
or Spain,
No,
You
sir.
better
Cape Town,
get
or
you old Muslim or
Johannesburg, or
something
both,
that you get with or
in
something.
South Africa.
Cape Town.
Cape Town, beautiful city, right? You got to go experience that when you were growing
Christian
up,
gonna be when
correct?
he turns
I
the other
did.
cheek.
Because you had such loving people around you supporting you, correct?
Yes, sir.
In fact, your grandmother went with you on that trip, did she not? Or not on that one, but on the ones to
Several
Europe,
trips.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And we heard you got to meet up with your sister in one of those trips, correct?
I did. I had the privilege.
So you always had someone there taking care of you, and you always had good, strong male role models, including people at your grandmother's church and your stepfather, Mr. Harrington, correct?
I had male role models in my life growing up, but in my more formative years, more so 16 to 18, I did not have a relationship with my father, and the male role models that came and testified, they were present but not intimately as whenever I was younger, maybe middle school years.
God,
But when
eloquently
when I
he
turned
speaks.
around 16 to 18, it was
What
the
hell
females
was
that
you
actually
doing
had
shooting the shit out
that
of
caregiving
somebody's child, boy?
and nurturing relationship with me. But
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
yes,
So,
sir. Towards the more recent years, I didn't have that one-on-one and very close relationship with, you know, those male role models in my life. You know, you heard my stepfather say, you know, after the divorce.
I did hear that, Mr. Chance. Let me stop you,
Mr.
okay,
Gathright.
and we'll go back to my question. I'm sorry?
Mr. Gathright.
I'm sorry, I keep calling you that, Mr. Gathright. Let me go back to what you said earlier. Between 16 and 18, you didn't have a male role model? Is that what you're telling the jury?
I'm not saying I didn't have any male role models, but day to day, you know, young men need strong.
That's not what I
influence.
asked. I asked if you had a male role model between 16 and 18.
I had a figure that I could go to, but not intimately.
Mr. Edwards, right?
Yes, sir.
He had stayed in contact with you even when you graduated into high school, correct?
Yes, sir. We definitely maintained a relationship, but
And he
it
seemed to
wasn't.
be pretty enthusiastic about that, right?
Yes, sir.
In
Yes,
fact,
sir.
you went on a cruise with him at some point, did you not?
Yeah, when I was younger, yes. We had
Okay.
a very close relationship.
And then from what you're saying, if I understand it right, the females, I'm assuming you're talking about your grandmothers and your mom stepped into the gap?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was grandmother's, mother's, sister.
So let me see if I got this right. When you were being brought up,
got a cousin like
and you
that.
were being brought up by a mother who was enlisted or an officer in the military, an officer,
Had
wasn't she?
everything. Thuggish.
I don't know exactly what her rank is. I know she was a sergeant.
But in the Marine Corps.
Yes, sir. She was in the Marine Corps.
All right. And then you had a stepfather who was in the Air Force, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was.
From the time you were 3 all the way up to when they divorced in 2020.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So you were getting good.
They taught you right
gifts
from wrong,
every year,
correct?
boy. You got
Yes, sir.
And we heard that
bikes.
from your grandmother,
Yes, sir.
right?
nah. You wasn't getting
Of
bikes.
course,
You
yes,
was
sir.
getting
Miss Lyle,
rollerblades
she
and
told us the same
what you
thing.
call them little shit,
They brought you
the
up in the
hoverboards
church.
and all that.
They
shit
taught you
early.
about the Ten
Black
Commandments.
screens, boy,
They
I
taught
know
you
had
about right from wrong,
laid
did they
out at
not?
your
They
crib.
did.
All right. And they were excellent
Grandma, too,
role
good
models
grandma.
about living
Oh, my God.
living your life in a disciplined, honest, and right way, correct? And being law-abiding, correct?
They really didn't have to worry about me. You know,
Well, let me just answer
Oh,
my
shit.
question. Would you agree with what I'm
Yeah,
telling
they
you?
did, boy. You
That they were excellent role models of
Yeah.
how to live a moral life?
yes, sir. They definitely instilled the foundation.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
I have nothing else, Your Honor.
Okay, redirect.
Mr. Gathright, despite living, I think I did that. Despite having what you called a blessed upbringing, you still find yourself here today, right?
Unfortunately,
Where you had lived, we heard about Mississippi, and was Jacksonville different than where you had lived previously?
Jacksonville was unlike any other city that I've lived in or visited or any other country. The cultures,
Maybe y'all think these is
the
his natural
neighborhoods,
reactions, or do
the
y'all think it's
people,
more they prepared him for some of this stuff?
it's completely different.
And how old were you when you kind of started experiencing that
His
culture
demeanor
shock?
says somebody prepared him for me.
So when I moved to Jacksonville, I was about 9 or 10 years old. You know, I didn't really know much about what the streets were, quote unquote, the streets were. It was more whenever I got to high school and I wanted to leave the
My Life
magnet
13,
school that I was
appreciate
at. I wanted to be at more of a neighborhood school, to be around the people I grew up with, because at the magnet schools, it's 30, 45 minutes away. I, you know, didn't really know anybody. I wasn't as close as the people who I grew up with. So around high school, that's when I started hearing about, you know, and seeing, you know, the different things like, you know, the drugs and people dying and, you know, stuff like that. And I was caught completely off guard, but I was curious, like, what is this, you know, and listening to the music, like, I was just,
Oh shit!
like,
Don't blame the
caught off
music,
guard,
man.
like, I never
God damn,
experienced
dog.
something like
You was
that,
a rapper,
especially
man.
living in Japan and, you know, living in different states around the world. I mean, or in the country, just, it didn't have what Jacksonville had.
And we've heard from a lot of people that knew you, and I think it's been a pretty consistent theme that you were mature and, smart and interested in things. But you were still, what, how old around that time?
I was 14, 15, I definitely would consider myself to be smart and, mature for my age, but
Still curious?
I was still a young boy, I still am a young man.
You think you were kind of impressionable?
I would characterize myself as, at times being naive, gullible, impressionable, and yeah.
There you go. And you were smart.
And so despite that upbringing, are you finding yourself, you're in a different culture now, but you still want to be as successful as you can?
Yeah, so being in the jail, I'm by myself, especially in a city so far away. I don't know anybody, so I took this time to focus back in on myself and just get back to the basics, what I know, and without anybody being in my ear or influencing me, I've cut out the noise, there's not many distractions in jail, it's the same thing every day. So I started to work out and, programs, try to educate myself more, plan, stuff like that.
So more to the story, he's a follower.
Everybody asks themselves, or everybody asks God
like
for things, what we want from what we want God to do for us. But a lot of the times we don't ask what God wants from us. And so I've asked God that question, what do you want from me? I'm asking all these things from you. What do you want from me? And he told me that he's calling me, like I feel like my calling, or what he told me, was to be there for the youth, serve the youth, keep them from going down similar paths, because there's a better way. And the streets is not the way. The streets are not the way.
Even having everything, trips and privilege and church and grandmas, and you still can find yourself going down a wrong path, right?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
And you feel that that's your calling?
Yes, I want.
Objection non-responsive.
Well, I think it's more asked and answered, but you can go ahead and answer. Just yes or no. Just answer yes or no. Do you
what
feel
was-
that you're calling?
Just what you were describing.
Yes, I do.
Um,
I would like to.
Well,
Objection
no.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
no. We're just gonna wait for a question, okay, Mr. Gathright?
Yes, ma'am.
What you think he was gonna say right now?
Different
He wanted to try to clarify some shit real quick. I don't know, bro, because he was ready to like.
Everybody, Walton Goggins here. Starting a business is never easy, but with GoDaddy Arrow.
Judges tell your ass quick, like, hold on, you gotta wait for a question, boy. Stop playing. You tripping. The way that looks to me is that kid is either a great actor and gonna go back to jail and gang it up when he get back in there, or he came and played the part. You know what I'm saying? That the lawyer told him to play. You know what I mean? Because he had to come in there and act like a really, really good kid that went left, and the lawyers are, the prosecutors are in that motherfucker trying to make sure that everybody know that nah, this guy here is on 4K Tesla TV dancing around with motherfucking AR-15s, shooting the hell out of somebody's child and, killing them and injuring others. So you gotta be some type of religious or some type of non-judgmental person not to to want to see them get the maximum. If death is in the cards, they gotta wear that, man. Because that lady sat in that courtroom and watched them try to defend themselves. Say you're getting life, you already might as well say what you want. That's facts. That's really what the hearing was for. But at this point, again, man, you either gonna stand on what you did and take what they give you. But I just don't like the fact that these boys like begging for their lives and all that there. And then like the clip I showed at the beginning, them them good old boys waiting for them. We got some work for y'all boys. We got some work for them. So y'all ain't got to worry about them. Gonna get some free work out their ass, and they gonna do exactly what we want them to do for the rest of their lives. With that being said, this has been the Bar Breakers panel with Big Shake, and I just wanted to react to this Sean Gathright trying to get his say in this, whether or not he dies or goes to prison forever. And I wanted to know if gang is still a part of all of them boys' everyday life or even thought process. That's a fact. That's between you and God now. Because again, you did what you did, and all I want to say is, God bless that young lady who lost her son and everybody else. These kids need to put them guns down. You're not supposed to have weapons of mass destruction in the hood. That's not what that shit for. And hopefully we don't have any more of these situations, man. We got too many of these young cats sitting in prison, who feeding people and changing lives, and the streets still calling them. And with that being said, I'll see y'all next time. This has been the Bar Breakers panel with Big Shake. Subscribe to Bar Breakers 305 on YouTube, and salute to the motherfucking panel. You have to research more. He was not one of the shooters. He should stop playing and told me that he was that. He was gonna call it. I mean, the cracker just said he was out there shooting. Sean Gathright and Alicia Andrews' girl was in the car together. And they was doing all the tracking, and the stupid ass screen recorded the phone and didn't realize he still had a screen recording on his screen recording every move and making, trying to figure out what Julio was. But yeah, that was a good session, good job.
On Mr. Gathwright's age, physical abilities, things like that, do you think that the prison would benefit from him in a work capacity if he were sentenced to life without parole?
I say yes. With my experience, not only just in classification, but as former warden and even as a jail administrator, he's someone that's young, he's healthy. In reality, we need that labor, we need that sweat equity, and we will put him out there to work because we do have an aging prison population, jail administration. We have that, so we put these young individuals to work and get some sweat equity out of them since they are young and actually can do the work.
And I know we talk about